Welcome to another week of The Choices We Face. My name is Peter Herbeck. We're here today with Dr. Bob Schuchts. Bob is a very important brother in the church today, bringing healing to the lives of many people, clergy and laity alike. And Bob is the founder of the John Paul II Healing Center in Tallahassee, Florida. And he's also the author of some very, very important books on healing. First, a real foundational book, I think, that launched a lot of the ministry called Be Healed. It's one of the best books I've ever read personally on healing, and a brand new book that just came out called Real Suffering, Finding Hope and Healing in the Trials of Life. And in it, Bob shares his own personal story, as well as the wisdom God has given him on how to deal with suffering, how to deal with pain, how to deal with the wounds that really all of us at some level experience in our lives. We're going to do two shows with Bob today. We're going to have Bob just share his own testimony, and next week, we're going to talk about really the foundational elements of the book. So welcome, Bob.
Thank you, Peter. Great to be with you.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you're here.
Yeah,
You have an amazing, such an amazing story, and I want our listeners to be able to hear kind of how the Lord worked in your own life, which is the ultimate foundation of where all this wonderful teaching has come from.
Yeah, thanks. Just starting at the beginning, I was one of 7 children, like you.
Yeah.
And I was second oldest, and you were second youngest, right?
Right. Yeah.
We were really a very active Catholic family. Went to Catholic schools. Parents very involved in the beginning of the renewal movement.
Mm-hmm.
And everywhere we went, what a beautiful Catholic family.
Mm-hmm.
Family was, they're very open, prayed during the day, all that. So as things started to fall apart in the family, it was a real shock, not only to us, but to everybody around. And back at that point, nobody got divorced. Catholics didn't get divorced. And so this is the late 60s. And my parents began to have difficulty and ended up getting divorced. And my dad was unfaithful and also had a problem with alcohol. And it just literally shattered the family. It was devastating to me. I just remember sitting and hearing the news and just sobbing, just sitting in a chair like this and just sobbing. And
How old were you at the time?
I was 13.
Mm-hmm.
And I was, the rest of my life was great, but it just kind of disrupted our entire life because we left the city, moved down to South Florida from Pittsburgh, and lost all the friendships, lost all the relatives that we were close to, and everything else, and so it was just a really big disruption. But rather than deal with it, at that age, I don't know how I would deal with it, but
Right.
rather than deal with it, I just kept going forward, just kept playing sports, doing well in school, ended up going to Columbia for education and get my graduate school, thinking everything was fine, thinking, there's not a problem. I'm fine. In fact, we still got the perfect family, right?
Yeah, you were excelling so much. You were so driven and focused. Now you had some of your brothers responded differently to the situation. I think one of the most impressive or kind of insightful things in your book that you bring out that you end up saying is, it sounds like something that you actually learned through the whole process is, how did we each deal with this crisis and this wound that we sustained?
Yeah.
So can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, we all dealt with it very differently. My older brother, he was really my best friend growing up, and we did everything together. Soon after my parents' divorce, he went just on the streets. He became a heroin addict by the time he was 16. So I was 14, he was 16, and actually stayed addicted to heroin for 20 years. Off and on, he would try to get free, and he couldn't. Never went to treatment, but try to get free, and he couldn't. And it was the conversion, or his conversion started with the birth of his daughter. He ended up having a daughter out of marriage, and actually I remember going and looking for him on the streets when his daughter was being born. Just to try to find him to let him know his daughter was being born. It was just really a tragic situation, but very helpless situation. It's just people who suffer with drug addiction, they're very caught up in it, and the family's just...
Yeah. And so it was your dad leaving that just something broke in your brother and he just was like lost, and that's how he responded?
He was already experimenting. It was the late 60s.
Oh, yeah.
He
Okay.
was Woodstock generation.
Hmm.
And so he was already experimenting, but I think that was his way of dealing with the pain, which was just to get high
Yeah.
and not be in pain.
And you were kind of, I remember part of the story, you were like taking care of the family a little bit, taking
Yeah,
care of your mom, and you became the super responsible
I
one.
became the super responsible one, still unlearning that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you went off, you made it through high school, and then you went off to Columbia where you played football.
Uh-huh.
Were you pretty good?
I was pretty good in high school. In college, I kind of struggled more.
Yeah.
Uh, I love playing football. I love playing sports, and so that was a lot of my identity.
Hmm.
And I also, at the end of college, got married. My wife Margie, and we ended up having 2 kids when I was in graduate school. And so everything looked great on the outside, and even on the inside. I wasn't aware that I was running from anything.
Is that right? And then you started a counseling practice?
Yeah, started counseling practice. After my graduate training, I really didn't know whether I wanted to teach or counsel, and I ended up doing both. And again, I was helping other people with their problems, And now I look at that and I says, there's certainly a lot of pride in that, thinking that I haven't dealt with my own, but I can help somebody else with theirs.
With so much success, and I mean, you were a successful student at an Ivy League school, you were a successful athlete, you were an excellent teacher, you went to a major university, all this stuff is happening. How did you sort of wake up to the reality of your own internal wounds and experience? How
Well,
did that all happen?
it actually happened through a crisis. I had a panic attack and had no idea that it was from all the buried stuff in my life. But I had a panic attack, and it drove me into therapy. And and the panic attack was actually around struggles in my own marriage at that point. It was just terrifying. I had this thought that I'm not in love anymore after, you know, 10, 12 years of marriage. And it's terrifying because the last thing I wanted to do was to repeat the thing that happened in my family. And so that panic attack threw me into therapy, which really opened up starting to deal with the wounds. And it was there that I began to realize that there was a whole lot of stuff back here that I hadn't even been aware of that was affecting me right now in my marriage. The reason why I wasn't in love because I'd closed my heart off from the pain
Hmm.
of what had happened, and I wasn't conscious of it.
And were you like frightened that, oh, you had like a hidden fear of, am I going to be just like my dad?
Yeah,
Am I going to inherit what
yeah,
he did? And then when you were perfectly managing your life,
yeah.
yeah, I
So that it
remember you
wouldn't
described,
happen.
yeah, you had it all, and then all of a sudden something's happening inside you
Yeah,
that you can't control.
yeah. It's terrifying at that point
Yeah,
because you think you've got your life in control.
yeah.
And,
So
and I
what
had a
happened?
relationship with God, but it wasn't. I was still in charge. I was still.
You were controlling every aspect.
Yeah.
You're a gifted guy. You can control God. You can control
Yeah,
everything kind
yeah,
of in your
yeah.
life.
That
Which
was
we
that
think
was
we
part
can,
of it,
right?
right? Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
And so then, what happened in therapy, and where did the Lord lead you?
Well, in therapy, I remember the first time my therapist started crying listening to my story. It was the first time I had ever felt anybody's compassion for what I'd gone through, and I was just not a big deal
Yeah.
in my life. But as she was crying, and it's like, wow, that must really hurt. I could see it in her. I couldn't feel it in me.
Yeah.
Uh, and then I remember the first time we went through and we lived a scene where my dad was visiting and then going back on the airport. And I remember sitting there as in the counseling session and reflecting on that image. And she said, "What do you want to say?" And I said, "Dad, don't leave. We need you."
Mm-hmm.
I just began to cry,
Mm-hmm.
and it was the first time in 20 years that even a tear came down. That was only the beginning. It started to open things up. During that time, I went on a Life in the Spirit seminar, began to open up spiritually. But even that, I had so much control of my own emotions that I had a hard time even letting the Holy Spirit take over.
Mm-hmm.
And so it really wasn't until 3 years later on a Christ Renews His Parish weekend. And it was in the middle of the night. A group of my friends and I just got down, decided to pray. And it was a life-changing experience. It was what I had been praying for in the Life in the Spirit seminar.
Oh.
But it took me 3 years to get there because of all the stuff that I hadn't dealt with. It was between those 3 years I started dealing with stuff, started opening up. And so as we were praying there together, just an incredible experience. And, the scripture says, rivers of living water will flow up from your belly.
Mm-hmm.
It felt like an explosion of life.
Yeah.
You know the experience.
Yeah.
And I didn't know whether to laugh or to cry. I literally felt like I was going to burst with the joy, with the experience of God's love. The love of God poured out into your heart.
Mm-hmm.
And I did start to cry, but I also was laughing at the same time, and it was just this
There's
incredible
a
experience.
joy. A joy.
Yeah, I was just, I think, the most joyous experience of my life to that point, and it changed everything. It was like the Father really loves me. I really have a Father. He hears my prayers, and I remember saying as I walked out of there, I will go anywhere in the world to tell people how good God is, because I knew it in the depths of me.
Yeah.
And I had, prior to that, formed these judgments about God because, I think because of the judgments that I had had towards my dad.
Yeah. It's easy to think about. We often project onto God what we feel about ourselves or from our experience, that maybe God looks at me the way my dad looked at me, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Or can I trust God? I couldn't trust my dad. Can I trust God? And
Yeah.
it's deep in us, isn't it?
Yeah,
That
very,
sort of thing.
very deep, and
Yeah.
you're not conscious of it.
Yeah.
I didn't know I had any judgments towards God.
Yeah. So just as you were involved in therapy for so many years, helping people, counseling
Yeah.
people for so many years, and then based on the description of your own experience, here you had all that stuff in you for so long,
Yeah.
and you're able to manage life at a very high level,
Yeah.
for so long, and then is it the Lord that just sort of starts bringing it up in us, and
I think so, because
Yeah.
I remember a lot of this started at a Bible study, and
Okay.
I remember going back and going at night and just praying every night, just saying, God, I need you, God, I need you, God, I need you. And I know that was his movement
Mm-hmm.
to bring me to that place, because up until that point, I didn't think I needed anything. I was
Yeah.
fine. I was taking care of everything.
Yeah.
And I think he just slowly began to bring this up at a place where I was ready. It didn't feel like it at the time with a panic attack. It felt like I wasn't
Yeah.
ready to deal with that. But it was just it was the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, and a panic attack is just is an emotion, total emotional response to a fear or something.
Yeah, it's like I had the thought of I'm not in love, and then there was this tremendous fear,
Mm-hmm.
and then I tried to control the fear, push it down,
Mm-hmm.
but the fear is so strong that it just, your heart begins to race and your mind begins to race, and
It's kind of volcanic.
yeah,
Kind
it's
of.
it's just like all the stuff that's been pressed down is all not going to be pressed down
Yeah,
anymore.
yeah. And so, you said 3 years. How long were you in counseling? May I ask? Is that okay if I ask?
Just for about a year and a half.
And it just helped you kind of open up and understand what was going on in your
Yeah.
life. Just somebody to help you.
Yeah, it was. I got out of my head and started to deal with my emotion a little more.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. And as you opened up, I was thinking of Romans chapter 5, where it says, God's love is poured into our hearts through the Holy Spirit, and you just were
Exactly.
encountering love
Yeah.
and opening yourself to love. And is there a connection, or what is the relationship between the suffering and the honesty about our own brokenness and the capacity for God to reach us?
Yeah, great question, because I think it's only in that place where we begin to open up to the suffering that our hearts begin to open up. It's like we've got a lid on it,
Yeah.
and it's sometimes the external suffering, but a lot of times that internal suffering that begins to open and, first of all, create a desperation for God, but second of all, open our hearts to be able to receive. It was like, if you've got a closed heart like this, there's no room to receive the love. It may be there, but you're not receiving it. You're not able to experience it. You're not able to feel it. So being able to feel the pain really opens up to be able to feel the love.
Yeah.
And the thing that happened right after that event is I was able to go home and see my wife differently and love her differently. It was just like my heart had a capacity for love that I hadn't had before that.
What's the root of that transformation? It was the encounter with God, but
Yeah.
sort of what's the dynamic that you're now free to give and not so afraid of
Yeah.
of kind of holding on in desperation, but there's a security there? How does that work?
I was so afraid, and again, I wasn't realizing, but I was so afraid that my wife was going to leave like my dad did.
Yeah.
And so I closed off to protect myself. Anything that was threatening, I would close off to protect myself.
Okay.
Once I had that experience, there was like this deep sense of security, this deep sense of uh, I can trust and I'm loved, and I don't have to hold it all together. I can let it go. I can let go. And so I could love and I could risk.
Yeah. I think, friends, just listening to Bob share here, just one of the thoughts that's going through my mind and heart is, we're all wounded in some way, aren't we, Bob? I mean, the fall is real, the effects of sin is real, and
Yeah.
and whether it came through our family life or whatever, it's in us, and it can be easy for people to say, well, gee, Bob doesn't have any problems like that. I mean, he's like a superstar, teacher, successful writer, all these kinds of things, and it's easy to imagine that when you're kind of struggling with it yourself, you're the only one who's going through something like this.
Yes.
And this is just kind of the normal part of life, isn't it?
Yeah. Sadly, we go to church and think that everybody's fine.
Yeah.
And I got to be fine too.
Yeah.
And yet, it's not until we start dealing with those areas of our life that we have a real relationship with God.
Yeah.
Because up until then, it's theology. It's not relationship. It's not real depth relationship, and it's really that struggling and that honesty in the struggling. Because we talked last night about how hard it is when everybody else seems okay
Yeah.
to be the one who's not.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm hurting. I'm broken,
Yeah.
especially for guys. We
Yeah,
always want to
especially
put a
for guys.
mask on to
Yeah.
say, no, I'm fine. Everything's good.
Yeah.
Everything's great.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, it's my brother who's got the problem.
right. And I'm here to fix it. I'm
Or
here
my
to help
dad
fix
has,
it.
yeah.
Right. Now, the Lord did an amazing work in your family because everybody was broken. Can you share a little bit about all that happened there? And I mean,
Yeah.
I know it's big, but
Yeah, there's just so much, but I'll give you some of the highlights.
okay.
First thing that happened is one person after another started to have their own spiritual experiences. And I also had a real healing experience with my dad, where I was able to really grieve his leaving and then begin to talk to him about it. And at one point, after my dad and several of my brothers had gone on their own spiritual renewal process, we went on a trip to North Carolina to a place called Windy Gap, big men's retreat. And I remember sitting underneath the big gazebo with my dad and my brothers and asking my dad questions. Why did you leave? What was going on? What were you feeling? So it was the first time that he really opened up and shared very vulnerably and apologized and recognized and listened to our hurt. That was just a watershed moment of new relationship. So that really began a process that was over many years. And a key part of that was my brother Dave. And about 2 years after my own experience, he went on a retreat weekend himself. And he went to confession for the first time and just laid it all out. First time after 20-some years, 25 years probably. And he came back after his confession. This is what he told me afterwards. After his confession, he was so euphoric. God's forgiven me. I can't believe this. But as he goes to bed, he starts to remember all the events, the way he had stolen from the family, the crimes he had committed, the times he was in jail, all the stuff that had happened, abandoning his daughter. Just began to hate himself.
Yeah.
Just
Like the
that self-hatred.
tsunami. Yeah.
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 That he really wanted to get up and leave the weekend, and this is the middle of the night. What he did instead is he walked out into the sanctuary and kneeling, still the same church I go to right now, Good Shepherd, kneeling at the altar, looking up at the image of the resurrected Jesus. And he says, how can you forgive me? After everything I've done, how can you forgive me? And he just heard still small voice, has your family forgiven you? And he said, yeah. Where do you think they received that from? And at that he broke. And he said he just, torrents of tears. All the self-hatred was all this pain that had been bound up inside of him. Just torrents of tears. He's at the foot of the altar, just weeping, repenting, just really sorry for everything that had happened. And yet, in the middle of that, this joy the joy that had started in the confession that just came and took hold. And when I saw him, again, I'd lost my brother for all those years. When I saw him come out of that church on that weekend, and his face was radiant, and he looked so youthful and so alive, and I went up and hugged him, and it was just like, I've got my brother back.
Wow.
Just incredible.
Yeah.
So you want me to go into the part
Yeah,
later?
and that's
Yeah.
just part of the story with him. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just so amazing. Our friends have to hear this.
Yeah.
It's just so good. Yeah.
We ended up, my mom and my wife Margie and my brother Dave went to New Zealand, kind of as a celebration trip. My mom had these 4 frequent flyers anywhere in the world, so we went to New Zealand and had a great time, just like reliving childhood, jumping on the trampolines and laughing and just playing again, and just restored life. But it wasn't maybe 2 years after that we began to find out that Dave was suffering from HIV and had contracted AIDS from a heroin needle before the last time he was in jail, before this weekend. Actually, he was let out of jail and came into our house, and then he went on to the weekend. And so this couple of years later, all this joy turned into this mourning again. We really thought he was going to run, that he was going to just, go back on drugs and not deal with it. But I remember sitting out in front of his new house. He had just gotten a house. He had just invited his daughter to live with him for the first time in his life. Things were looking great. And I remember sitting out on the front porch of his house, and just like this. And he says, well, I'm going to be going to the doctors tomorrow, and I think I might have AIDS. And I just, what do you say? He says, but I've been praying a lot, and God's asking me to be a person with AIDS for him.
Mm-hmm.
And I finally have a purpose in my life. And even if it's a positive diagnosis, I'm not afraid. I was just stunned. I was just absolutely stunned sitting there listening to him. And sure enough, that's what happened. He went and lived with my brother Wayne when he got sick. My brother played quarterback at the University of Virginia, big athlete who kind of walked away from his faith. And in caring for Dave and seeing Dave's joy, seeing Dave's surrender, seeing Christ in Dave while Dave's dying, Wayne went through a conversion process. We went to visit another guy with AIDS, Dave and I, and this guy was in total despair, was close to death, and Dave was able to share the gospel with him, share his faith with him, share his joy with him. And I believe this man will be in heaven. But the biggest one was as Dave was dying. And it was, my dad was living in West Virginia. I still did until this last year when he died. But my dad was living in West Virginia, and a friend of his just came and gave him an airplane ticket. Says, I want you to go down and visit your son. So it was Easter, around Easter time. It was 2 weeks before Easter. So he tried to come at Easter time, and he couldn't get a flight. And so 10 days back before Easter, on the Thursday before Passion Sunday, he ended up getting a flight. And so because of that, all of our family members decided we're going to descend on Jacksonville, which was where Dave was staying, and have a family reunion together. And have the last Easter with Dave. So we come over into the house, knock on the door in the morning. Nobody else was there, and my dad yells from the back bedroom, come on in. And I walk into the room and see my dad on the bed, straddled behind my brother.
Mm-hmm.
And my brother's here, and my dad's got his arms around him, and my brother's in a half comatose state. So my dad's holding him, and it's the prodigal son story, but
Yeah.
the prodigal father and the prodigal son both together.
Oh, wow.
And I walk in there, and I couldn't believe God's graciousness to have a spirit experience like that, where I could see that kind of faithfulness of God's providence to bring things back together at the last moment in my brother's life, and to bring healing.
Wow. Bob, that is so powerful. Thank you so much for sharing that. And friends, that's the Lord, a loving Father, and He brought a family that was so wounded, so broken, so separated together. And just the idea of your father being in the center of it, who had been the source of a lot of that pain for everybody.
Yeah.
And this is what God can do if we give our hearts to him, if we open our hearts to him and acknowledge the wounds that we carry or the pain that we have, and we begin to seek him. He's a loving Father, and he loves you. And I hope you can receive that word today, that word of encouragement for you, because it's real. Friends, I want to also remind you of this new booklet Ralph Martin wrote called Mary's Mission, Our Response. You can get it on our website at renewalministries.net. Just click on the icon there and we'll send it to you free for the asking. But until next week, just want to remember Bob's going to be with us again next week, and he's going to talk about the content of this book, about how we can all learn to open our hearts to the Lord to receive the healing that the Lord wants to give us. And he does want to heal you. He loves you. He knows you. He's named you. And in this show, he's coming after you. So tune in again next week. God bless you.